Tears of the Kingdom has been out for quite a while now. I knew I wanted to make a video on it. It was a big game. I played Breath of the Wild. That was the first Legend of Zelda game I actually beat. I played it from beginning to end. I liked it. I had problems with it, but it was a good game, right? So I knew when Tears of the Kingdom came out, I was going to want to do the same thing with this game. But I just struggled with this game. I didn't like it that much, and I don't think it's as good as people said. Now, before it sounds like I'm just beating the hell out of this game, I did like it. It was a good game, right? But I have major issues with it. For one, like, the world is awesome, right? Going around exploring just like in Breath of the Wild. It's huge, it's expansive. This game, they made the play area even bigger. You can go up into the sky, you can go down into the depths. It's cool. They changed up a few things, and it's nice. The shrines are good. They're quick, fast, fun. Some are like kind of frustrating, but then you can think about it and come up with cool ways to beat them. But it's not quite enough to save the game for me. I mean, for one, the weapons breaking needed to go. That was something in Breath of the Wild, and it sucks. It's not fun having your weapon break all the time, right? This game, you have 4 different types of weapons. You have your bows, your short swords, your long two-handed weapons, and then your spears. Those are the only options. Those are the only different types of attacks. They easily could have fixed this by just having more varieties of weapons, right? They could have had just as many, but come up with different attack animations for each one. Make them feel a little bit differently. That way you have some incentive to go out and search out different weapons, right? You should be able to go to the town, get a weapon repaired if you insist on having it break. But it does not need to break as often as they do now. It's completely ludicrous. This game also introduces the fusion feature where you can take a weapon and fuse something onto it, make it stronger. That's fine. Have the attachment break off. Well, why do you have to have the main weapon shatter? It does not make sense, especially in a world where you see Elden Ring do it just right. Enemies can drop weapons. You can pick them up. You cannot pick them up. You don't have to feel like you need to take every single weapon, right? If they want to incentivize you to go and explore that camp and kill the bokoblins, have you go for the attachment and fuse that on and have it break off. Because if I have a weapon I like, let me have it. You know, there were many times where I'd have my sword and my shield, and then I'd be using my sword and my sword would break. And then suddenly I have to use a two-handed weapon because I didn't have any other one-handed weapons. It's just frustrating. All right, we don't need that. They could have just totally went around it and have the attachments break off. That would have been fine. You would still have to go out and search to get the stronger weapons. Fine, whatever. Just throw me a bone, right? Don't keep breaking my weapons every 2 minutes. The next thing that was kind of grating for me early on in the game was the fact that I don't like these powers as much. This game, you get your arm blown off in the first 5 minutes of the game, and you get this infinity gauntlet looking thing, right? So you have this old ancient arm, and with it you have certain powers, right? You can rewind time, you can pick things up and fuse them together, you can teleport through the ceiling. They're fine, and you can fuse things together, right? They're fine, but I didn't enjoy these as much as the other powers. You know, the Ultra Hand, at times it was cool to pick things up and move them around. Like, there was a certain shrine where I was struggling to kill everything in there until I realized you could just pick up the platform they're standing on and throw it across the room and let them die in the water. Things like that were cool, but I felt like you should have been able to lift up certain things with the Ultra Hand, but you couldn't because you were standing on it, or there were, at the top of a mountain there was like a plug I wanted to just pull out with the Ultra Hand. You couldn't. Weird little limitations like that. The Ultra Hand just felt really weak to me. Fusing things together never really felt quite right. Like, you could have it work, but I would want to fuse things in a certain way, and it wouldn't always work. The ability that lets you travel up through the ceiling, fine, that's cool. I like that one. Not super fun, but it was nice, and when you needed to get out of a cave, you could just teleport out and be done. You know, I already talked about the fusing a little bit. I thought that was a cool little wrinkle. Make your weapons stronger, but then it still breaks anyways, and you lose both of them. And lastly, rewinding time just didn't... All of these powers kind of sucked. And I didn't like building things. I didn't like fusing them together and using the Zonai equipment. So immediately when I started playing this game, I was hit with the weapons breaking, and then I was hit with all these abilities I didn't really like. So that was like my initial disdain for the game. The other parts were fun, but those parts really drove me nuts, and I did not enjoy them. So then going on, I figured, let me push into the story. I've heard the story for this game is so good. So you do your first temple, and it's awesome. You know, you meet somebody, you do a couple tasks with them, you unlock the temple, you go through the temple, and at the end you realize that person was the descendant of the person that originally helped seal off Ganon. Great. And then you do 3 more dungeons that are just like that with the same setup where you meet somebody, you do a couple tasks, you go to the dungeon, and at the end you have like the same variation of the same cutscene over and over. It's a long stretch. It's a lot of gameplay in between the first 4 dungeons, right? I was trying to take my time, do shrines, explore as I went, and then every dungeon I got to, the payoff just sucked. So then it started to feel like a chore. Once you get past that, and we're going to go into spoilers now, it gets a little better. Once you unleash Ganon, oh my god, that cutscene is amazing. Like, that's where you start to get the story, and it just makes me sad that you had to wait so long into the game to experience that. And they couldn't have made it any differently throughout all the other dungeons. Like, it's the problem with this game. It's so open world. You're meant to do those first 4 dungeons in any order you want, so they can't really make one tie into the other or this. I'm sure they could have made the story more interesting through those dungeons in a way where it's not repeating the same thing over and over and over again. But I felt like that was really frustrating for me. And then once Ganon's released, it really picks up. That cutscene was awesome. You really feel his like imposing power and just how he's terrorizing the world around you. It was awesome. That was the coolest cutscene. Like, some of the cutscenes in this game are great. You know, when I went and got the Master Sword, that whole cutscene, because apparently you get the Master Sword when you fight Ganon, but I went and got the Master Sword before. I went and I made sure I got my whole 2 wheels of the stamina wheel. I found the Deku tree, I killed the Ganon spirit inside of it, I freed that, and then found where the dragon was and went and got the sword. That cutscene where you're on the dragon and you're pulling the sword and he raises you up to the light, it was awesome. Like, that was such a cool moment. And then, you know, later when you beat Ganon, that whole cutscene, the whole fight, where you go down through the depths of Hyrule. You get all the way down to his lair. You fight his army, right? Then you get to the lair with just him. He's got all these different phases. And as you fight him, it gets more and more intense. He gets more and more destroyed. He lets out more of his true power. And then at the end, he turns into a freaking dragon. We had to go through so much of this game with so little direction, so little guidance, so little storytelling. And then for the later half of the game, for it to pick up a little bit and then just end, it's like sad to me. You know, this game could have been so good. I loved what they were doing with these awesome cutscenes, but they should have done more stuff like that throughout the whole game. Like, leave the world open world if you want, but those few things just really grated with me, where it's like, I don't care that much about all these powers. I felt like the combat was clunky because of them, and you have all these different, like, hit this button, press up, attach that to the arrow, shoot it, do it. You spend so much time in the menus, it takes away from the action and the immersion. And don't you want to go out and explore? Isn't that the whole point of this game? Why do you need all this extra crap on top of it? I just don't really understand that, and I felt like the game would have been better if they just let you go out and play. Let you pick the type of weapon you want. Look for upgrades in the world. Find what you want to find and play. Explore, go out and fight. They should have had, like, I don't know. It doesn't need to be exactly Dark Souls-like, but I felt like if they got rid of a lot of these extra abilities, they'd be able to let us do more things with the controller, right? And it wouldn't feel so clunky. So that's kind of where I'm ending this. I mean, the game was good. I'll recommend it, but I think I'm going to move on now. I'm not playing this anymore. I've played it enough. I've seen what the story has to offer, but I don't vibe with it that much. And sadly, I think if they do another sequel of this style, I'm not going to play it. I'm tired of the weapons breaking. I don't need all these extra powers. Like, just let me play as Link. Let me explore. Let me get my stamina and hearts up the same way, but I don't need this extra stuff thrown on top of it. It felt like a distraction most of the time. I just want to go out and explore and have fun and have an adventure. I don't want to relive the same thing over and over again. So I'm starting to kind of repeat myself. That's kind of what I thought of the game. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm kind of beating this game down, but I didn't care for it that much. And it just makes me sad because this is a big tentpole game this year, and I don't think it's going to be that memorable for me. Like, I'm now going to move on to Final Fantasy 16, and we'll see. I've heard that's better. I'm excited for that, so I'm going to try that next and see what happens. So let me know what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you later. Sorry, guys. Kind of a rough one. This video is brought to you by your support on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/GrouchyGus94 to help support the channel.